Raising our own meat chickens and ducks has become very important in our lives, and it's something that we are planning to do for the foreseeable future. The days that we do the chicken and duck harvests, they're not like fun days on the farm. You know, they're just somber days. It's the last day of the animal, and you have to respect what it is they're doing for you in your life. Now we still have a bunch of these meat birds left. I think we have 12 left. We started off with 30. 0 died, which is an incredible feat. Usually 1 or 2 or 3 will die. We bought 30. We ended up with 30. We have 12 left, so we've already done a lot of the harvests. It's just my Darden and I doing it, so we don't kill ourselves and do 30 birds in one shot. We don't even have the freezer space for it. I think we would have to purchase a new freezer just for the chicken, which we don't really want to do. I don't know if I'll ever do 30 birds again. It might be a bit much. The dogs and the cats are going to benefit from the extra meat. I don't think my Darden and I will go through 30 chickens by the time next summer comes around and we can raise some more chickens, right? So let's just get started and let me explain some of the equipment here and show you how we go through it. And I'm not going to show everything in detail, obviously. You can't do that on YouTube. I'm going to do my best to explain how we go about doing some of this stuff. This is our first year experiencing the Cornish cross. In past years, we've just hatched our own light Sussex or Rhode Island Red, because those are heritage breeds, you know. They're good for eggs and for meat. Now for us, personally, both my Darden and I, we've been doing this officially now for 2 full years. And I must say that the process itself is fairly straightforward. You can watch a bunch of YouTube videos and understand the dynamics of each step, you know, to get it to the point where all the feathers can be removed. And that's all fine and dandy, but the most difficult part, obviously, is getting the bird into the cone upside down and slicing the jugular. It doesn't take long for the bird to pass, which is good. You want to do it as humanely as possible, and that's what we try to do. And that seems to be the general method that most people use to dispatch your animals. Some of the equipment that we've invested in order to harvest our chickens and ducks, make our life a little bit more easier. We got the kill cones here. Of course, you put the chicken upside down and do the deed. Then you have to have a propane tank with one of these outdoor stoves with a big giant pot of water in it. And then you need a bucket of ice cold water, preferably with ice. And of course you need the hose ready to spray the actual chicken plucking machine. And we do have a couple of coolers to put the birds after they've been dealt with. It takes a little bit of patience and understanding to actually do the harvest. It wasn't easy the very first chicken that we did. It was like, you know, you get like a big lump in your throat and you really don't feel good about doing it. But intellectually you understand that that's why you raised them. We love to eat meat. I love chicken, the dogs love chicken, my Darden loves chicken. We probably eat chicken at least 2 or 3 times a week. So it makes sense, but you have to be able to separate pets from livestock. And this is kind of a, you know, it's a big thing out there. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, I like to eat chicken meat, but I don't know if I could do that. And, you know, I'd like to think that it's actually giving me a better understanding as to how people used to live. You know, grocery stores didn't exist forever. At some point, everybody was a homesteader and we didn't have grocery stores. Everybody grew their own stuff. They went somewhere, they traded some pork for some chicken. And I don't know how the heck people did it back then, but I definitely know everybody basically had an understanding as to how this was done and how it worked. Whereas nowadays, the grocery stores and the cities and urban development, urban sprawl, people just have no idea where their food comes from. They have no idea how the chicken is living before it gets to the grocery store. And I'd like to think that we are at least providing somewhat of a good life to the birds. I would have liked to have had them out onto the pasture area. I'm thinking I'll get that done next year. But they were still able to walk around and move around, and they weren't cooped up in a little 2x2 cage like what you think of a grocery store chicken does, you know. And that's the way we're doing it here on the farm, whether you agree or not. This is how we are living our life right now. Now, whatever day we're planning out to do these harvests, we don't feed those chickens before we do it, because we don't want all the ground up mushy food to be stuck in their crop and, you know, in their esophagus area. You want that to be clear, so we make it a point to not do that. But as soon as we're done whatever birds we're doing for that day, we put the food there so that whatever birds are remaining has their food. Because it's getting a little bit nippy these days, we're not going to be doing this whole process outside. We're putting this stuff in the cooler, and we're going to be taking it home into the house, and my darling's going to do the butchering in there, which again, I'm not going to show that stuff, but you know, we'll have these freezer bags and get them all prepared to go into the freezer so that we have food for the immediate future. And all these little fingers sticking out here, they're all made out of rubber, and it just kind of grabs and pulls the feathers to make them come out a lot easier. And what's interesting about doing this kind of thing, you know, raising your own chickens for meat, is that we haven't bought chickens now for 2 years. And that's saying something, right? Because we used to buy chicken like what? Every time my wife goes to the grocery store, she's buying chicken legs or chicken wings, or I like the breast, especially if it's like a chicken souvlaki wrap or a chicken Caesar salad. I like using the breast. I like chicken sandwiches, but I don't like using the sliced deli meats, you know. I like putting fresh chunks of chicken with the mayonnaise and cheddar cheese, and that's one of my favorite things, you know. We do harvest some ducks every year. The dogs really like the duck, and it's a really healthy meat for the dog food. I myself will eat a nice recipe of duck, but I don't really eat a lot of duck. We may eat 1 or 2 ducks in a year ourselves, just because I'm a big fan of chicken. The process for harvesting a duck is pretty much exactly the same as harvesting a chicken. You know, you put it in the cone, you dip it in the hot water so you could remove the feathers, you cool it down, and then you put it in the plucker and most of the feathers come out. Some people use a wax dip so that you can just peel the wax off, and it's supposed to really help get the feathers off, because duck feathers are harder to come off. But I don't find it to be a big, huge problem. So all together with our 30 birds, we harvested a little bit more than 250 pounds of chicken. And we definitely don't need to buy chicken again for the rest of the winter and spring and summer of next year. And that's what this is all about for us. I'd say altogether, overall, our experience raising our own meat chickens and a few meat ducks has been generally a good experience. I mean, it's tough to say that killing chickens is a good experience, but what I mean is that it's brought us closer to nature. It's given us a better understanding of how to raise the food and where our food comes from. We're certain that there's no antibiotics, no steroids, no growth hormone in our meat, and that makes us happy. So overall, we're pleased at what we're doing, and we're going to continue this meat raising thing on our farmstead moving forward.